Thank you all for coming. I appreciate it. As Caroline said, this doesn't really stay up. That's fine. You guys can hear me fine though, right? Okay. I'm the editorial director for Jollyfish Press. It's a lot of fun. We seriously have the best company. We have the best authors. Look us up, buy everything. I have to say that because it makes me money. So, all right. So we're here to find a home for your manuscript. I'm not here to tell you to submit to me that. Well, I'm not supposed to be here to tell you to submit to me, and we're the best, but we are. But we're really going to go over all the different the changes in the industry. Why you submit to different publishers, indie publishers, hybrid publishers, traditional publishing. They all have something different to offer, and we're going to kind of decide what's going to be the best fit for you, because we are an independent press. That may not be the right fit for you, and so on. So we'll talk about a lot of that stuff. First, about me as editorial director. I run the entire editorial department for Jollyfish Press. So I have 3 editors that I am currently over, and we have 6 or 7 interns at any given time. I currently have 1 associate editor, who is Caroline. She's awesome. I have seen publishing change from both sides. So not only have I been in the editing industry, the publishing industry, but I came at it from a writer to begin with. So I struggled to find my way, struggled to find how to publish, where to publish, what all these differences were from the writer side before I ever became an editor. So first of all, we're going to talk about changes in the industry. The biggest change is probably Amazon, aka the beast. They have made so many changes specifically to ebooks in the industry and changed self-publishing forever. So the way that, certain things about Amazon here that you're going to need to know about if you're going into publishing at all, regardless if you self-publish, is 67% of all ebooks are sold through Amazon. 67%. 65% of all online sales of books go through Amazon. And 41% of all new book sales, ebook sales, are through Amazon as well. So this goes to show you that if you come out with a book, it's selling on Amazon. You have to have Amazon as your friend. There are some points where people did not have Amazon as their friend, which we'll talk about here, the $9.99 price point. Who remembers back in 2010 to 2012, the huge issue, and I apologize, Hachette is actually spelled incorrectly. There's an E on the end of that. My bad. Copier didn't pick that up. Whoops. Hachette is one of the big 5. So they were moving into this ebook industry, and Amazon came in and said, okay, this is what you're going to do. This is how we're going to do it. Most of the big 5 realized, wow, well, they sell more than half of our books, so we kind of have to submit to their demands. Hachette didn't want to do that. Amazon said all ebooks should be priced at $9.99 or less, period. There was no statistics showing this. There was no reason that publishers could see why Amazon would say $9.99 price point for ebooks. We figured, why can't we just sell them at what we want to sell them at? Why is Amazon forcing us to do this? Amazon essentially is psychological. People are more willing to buy a $9.99 ebook than a $13 ebook. Easy as that. They assumed that more sales would lead to more profits. That's what they're saying. Whoa, sorry, my fingers are trigger happy. The problem is Hachette didn't want to do that, so Amazon, because they sell so many, said, okay, well, we'll stop doing pre-orders for your books. will delay shipments and will stop advertising any of your books. So these are people like James Patterson, even J.K. Rowling. They got hit by this. They lost millions of dollars. Amazon didn't care. Amazon is becoming a monopoly. They sell a lot of books. Now, they aren't all bad, okay? They could be called the cuddly beast. Publishers like us have to deal with Amazon. It's just fact. And most of the time, it's really, really good. So even self-publishing, they've made it work. It's fantastic. I know several people who have self-published and they make a living writing because of Amazon. It's not necessarily a bad thing. They give free marketing. So if you've ever seen anybody say that reviews are the best thing that you can give an author outside of buying their book, 100% true. On Amazon, the number seems to vary, but currently, the latest number I have heard is 50 reviews get you listed in their catalog. 75 to 100 reviews, they start promoting your book actively with no payment from the publisher, from the author, nothing. And because they sell so many books, everyone goes to their website to get your, that would cost a lot of money to get your book up on their front page. And that's happened. They just do it for free because it makes them money. So Amazon is actually starting to make their own imprints. So it's not just self-publishing. So if you've heard of any Amazon Encore, Montlake Romance, Thomas & Mercer, 47 North, that's all Amazon. It's just imprints that do different variations of different genres. So what does this mean? Why am I talking so much about Amazon? You came here to learn about publishing and the industry. Well, Amazon is so huge, you have to deal with Amazon, period. You just have to. There's no way to get around it. You try to get around it, and you will not be successful. I will go on record saying if you do not deal with Amazon, you can't make it, period. It has made everyone dependent on Amazon, as the Hache Amazon deal kind of looks like that, well, if you don't follow what Amazon says, they have too much control, is what I'm trying to say. It does make it a lot easier to self-publish, and it's easier to get discovered because they do a lot of interesting things with KDP and Kindle and stuff like that. The other large change in the industry is for social media, actually. So how many of you have heard of Facebook? Twitter, Instagram, right? So the biggest thing that I want to talk to you about these guys is the way that you have to get your name out there, to find people, to network. These are not sales platforms. This is the biggest thing that I want to make sure people are aware, because often when I give this presentation, people go, oh, okay, well, I'll go on Facebook and I'll start posting about my book. No one wants to hear that. Facebook, Twitter, they don't sell books. What they do is they create a platform where people can come and feel like they are connected to you and your work, and they establish a stronger rapport between you and the reader, and that means they're going to read everything you do or more of what you do, or they'll get the word out for you. It isn't strictly tied to sales, it's more tied to branding. So don't expect to post about your book and say, oh, my book's on sale, and then expect to see 10 sales in the next 10 minutes. That won't happen. It's all about presence. But because these things are so huge, you are required to have an online presence, almost required to have an online presence if you want to be published traditionally. It's not just from publishers looking at you and saying, oh, well, how are you going to sell the book? You have no platform. When we go to Barnes & Noble, when we go to sellers, they will look you up. When they are trying to decide, oh, this book sounds good, is it going to sell in our stores? They will look you up, and if they cannot find you, they pass on the book. It's becoming more and more mandatory for you to be on here to have booksellers, that's Barnes & Noble, Costco, Walmart, Target, people like that, to buy your book. I recommend getting started now. If you don't have a book out, that's fine. Again, this is not about selling your book. This is about establishing a presence. This is about guest writing on blogs. This is about being involved in creating a community. The writerchallenge.org was created by one of my authors. She ended up getting a huge Twitter following because she has a writing challenge that she posts every single month. There's a new challenge, and you're supposed to write every day, and you're supposed to write 500 words every day. It's the Hemingway challenge. And that got her a huge following because she was a supporter of the community. She was giving back before she ever received. That looks wonderful on our. That's Christy Acevedo, by any of you who are interested. She wrote Consider. The Twitter pitch parties are fantastic. I've actually picked up a couple people from Twitter pitch parties. If you don't know what Twitter pitch parties are, quick rundown is you have 140 characters, you pitch your book during a specific time with that hashtag, and editors will look at it. Editors and agents will look at it.
What particular time is a good time?
What you're going to want to do is actually research. There's too many for me to list here.
Yes.
But PitMad, YA, there's one called Son of a Pitch, because pitching is horrible. People hate to do it. Wow, I'm going blank. There's like tons and tons and tons. If you Google it, you'll find a bunch. It's a great way to kind of ease off the pressure because you aren't pitching directly to somebody. You're just kind of throwing it out there in the world, and people are combing through. And hey, if they like it, you send them a manuscript or something. It's pretty cool. That's actually how I got Christy Acevedo with Consider. I was just combing and I was like, that sounds interesting. Beep. She sent it. We got it. All right. So we have, obviously, social media plays a large role. One other thing that you can do with them is street teams. A lot of people think this is just for movies or they've heard it for TV shows or something like that. What this does is it allows people to connect with you personally and allows them to feel like they're a part of something. I've seen authors do things like, hey, I need a name for 2 people in my book. We'll have a contest. Whoever comes up with the best name. That's great. Because people feel like they're connected. Then when your book comes out, they say, I named that character. I'm part of this book. And they'll tell more people about it. That's what a street team is. A street team are those people that you can kind of send them responsibilities, and they'll do it because they feel like they like being a part of that effort. Word of mouth still stands as the best selling avenue for books. Hands down, word of mouth. I mean, you'll even notice Harry Potter. How many books did it take for it to become popular? Like 4th or 5th book, right? Well, that's years. Years and years and years and years and years. They drop some money on marketing. It doesn't do much. Marketing is not as important as it used to be. It doesn't do as much effort. What does it is people read the book and they tell other people to read that book. And the best way to do that is get a street team. Get 50 people that you can depend on to go out and spread the word. All right, so let's talk. What time is it? Let's talk a little bit. This goes till 10:50? Yes? Okay, thank you. 10:55, thank you. All right, so let's talk about the different publishing avenues. So look at traditional publishing, the big 5, aka the Holy Grail. This is generally what people look at when they think, I want to publish a book. Well, they think of the books that have been published. Who has published those books? 80% of them have been from the big 5. So who are the big 5? You have Hachette, That's Little Brown and Company. They did Harry Potter. HarperCollins, an imprint of them, or Harper Teen. I believe they did that Divergent series. And Hunger Games? Don't quote me on that. Macmillan Publisher is, one of their imprints is Tor. That's their science fiction and fantasy. They do things like Robert Jordan, Wheel of Time, Brandon Sanderson. They do those big epic fantasy stuff. Then there's Penguin Random House. Penguin and Random House used to be separate, but they merged. And there are nearly 250 imprints. Actually, I wrote this like a couple years ago, so there may even be more than 250 now. They're growing. They're still growing. One of them is Crown Publishing Group. Honestly, if you go into any Target and you open up a book, good chance it's published by one of their imprints. They have a lot of mass market books in there. I want to say Fault in Our Stars was one of their imprints. Simon and Schuster. They do a lot of everything. They do a lot of nonfiction, I think more than the other people, but they also do fiction. I actually have a good friend of mine is an executive editor over there, and he does We All Looked Up, if you've heard of that book. I think they're just making it into a movie now. They do a lot of really good stuff over there as well. So what is traditional publishing? When I say traditional publishing, what does that mean? Well, generally speaking, especially when going to the big five, you have an agent, and the agent sends to an editor. There are still some big five imprints that do not require an agent. Tor, for instance, you do not require an agent. So if you're writing science fiction and fantasy, you can still submit to Tor. I think they have a very small submission window, but I think it's open to everybody. It's sometime in late winter, early spring, or something like that. You get free editing, you get free printing, you get free marketing. Everything is free when it comes to traditional publishing. They don't get paid until you get paid, and they're footing the bill. And we'll talk about how awesome that is in a second when we talk about self-publishing. Though a negative to traditional publishing is you'll have tight deadlines. I have had a friend of mine who's published by Simon & Schuster, I believe. She got back her manuscript, and it said, cut 20,000 words, you have 2 days. Now, I don't think that's probably the norm, but that really shows you the extreme of they have really, really, really tight deadlines. You have to, they kind of expect this to be your full-time job, and it can be a lot of hard work. That being said, if you're Patrick Rothfuss or George R. R. Martin, who cares? Deadlines. Pfft. But if you're new, you hit those deadlines, please. They generally will get your book in print. It's often in hardcover and paperback and ebook. Oftentimes they'll get deals for audiobook as well. And all of this is free. Why you would go with a traditional publisher or the big five? Well, potentially large advances. These are the people who will dish out 10 grand, 15 grand, 100 grand. What's that? The Red Queen? No, the Queen of Tierling, I think, just fetched a 7-figure advance, which is ridiculous. So potentially huge connections. Again, free everything. They're extremely selective, so it's very hard to get in. Each imprint has maybe 5 to 12 editors, and they can do maybe 10 books each, 10 to 15. So even if you're 10 and they're doing 15 each, that's 150 books per imprint. I know that Simon & Schuster does about 1,000 books a year, somewhere in there. So you can imagine how many people submit to them. It's probably upwards of 100 to 200 a day, and they can only do 1,000 in a whole year. So they're super, super, super selective. It's very hard to get in. You often need an agent. It takes a long time to go from submission to print, so that's another thing. We are currently acquiring for 2018. So if I were to acquire your book now, it wouldn't go into print until 2018. So it's a long time to wait, but there's a lot of good reasons for that. We don't have time to go over all of those. Because their overhead is higher, the big five specifically, they tend to take fewer risks. How many of you have walked into Target and seen, like after Twilight came out, and it's like every book is like in a Twilight clone? Yes, TJ, you are right about everything. It's crazy. They're money, really, really are. Though they do often come out with something that's astounding and awesome and amazing, that's completely fresh and new, most of their stuff is what's already been done because they know it sells. It's like Hollywood, right? You've seen, 5 Hollywood movies and you've seen them all. They're all the same because it works. They have a formula and it works. That's what the big five does. Is it right for your book? Well, if you have the next big thing, what they like to say, but really, it's really the next moneymaker, which is those Twilight clones or the Hunger Game clones that came out. It's tried and true. It's commercial appeal. They're looking for the money. And that's not a bad thing. I don't want to sound negative. That's generally what they do as a whole. So if you have that, awesome. Submit, get an agent. You can make a lot of money going that route. The small press, aka the little guy, that's me. We do everything a traditional publisher does. So we have free everything like them, similar benefits. We may not have as many connections, but we're working on it. We do have higher costs of books generally. Like I mentioned, consider it's $15. Really, if a large house did it, it would probably be $10 to $12. But that's because they have the money to print huge print runs, which lowers the cost of each book. So you will see that prints from smaller houses tend to cost more. It's not a bad thing, it's just business. It has nothing to do with we think our quality is better so we can charge more and nothing like that. It's strictly volume. No pun intended, volume. Some independent publishers are only ebook publishers. They don't do print. They can move print with they will move to print with high sales sometimes. So if you get an ebook only contract, it is possible that, say you sell 5,000, 10,000 ebooks in a month, they realize, wow, there's high demand for this, and they can move you to print. Most have the ability to do that, but just be aware. So why would you go with a small publisher versus a traditional publisher? Big five publisher. Well, I like to think we're extremely passionate. I've met a lot of the editors. I have some friends who are editing in New York with these big five publishers. I don't see the kind of passion that I see with editors in a small press. The passion, they have it, but they don't have that drive to find something new and fresh and get it out there and fall in love with it and just love it so much. We tend to work around the clock for you. I generally clock days of 10 to up to 15 hours a day because I love this business so much. I'm not in it for the money. We are a small press. We don't make much money, but I do it because I love it. That's why I'm here. We tend to like author input a little bit more. We always get, cover suggestions. We get the back copy suggestions. We get a lot of suggestions and input from the author because this is still their book. We just want to help you make it the best book that you can make it. We often have high royalty rates to offset the no advance. Some small presses still offer advances, maybe a little bit lower. Currently, we don't offer any advances, but our royalties make up for it. I've had authors make more with us than if they had published with one of the big five they didn't get an advance, but they got higher royalties and therefore made more money in the long run. You usually don't need an agent to get into a small publisher, and it tends to be a little bit easier to get in. I mentioned some of the big five get 100 submissions a day. We're getting 7 submissions a day. So that really shows you we have less to choose from, which means we don't have to be as picky, I guess. That being said, we only publish 15 books a year as opposed to their 150. So take that for what you will. I already talked about the higher price point may impact sales, small to no advance. Is it right for your book? I feel that we have more respect for your art as a small publisher, that when you submit a book to us, this is your book, and we're trying to make it the best book for you. Whereas opposed to traditional publishing, they're really focused on how can this book make money. And while we want to make money and we do make changes based on commercial appeal, I like to focus a little bit more on the art. It allows for more risk taking because we have a lot less overhead. We aren't doing 20,000 print runs. That's dropping, $100,000, $200,000 on a book. We're doing 1,000 to 2,000 copy print runs. It's a lot less overhead to worry about, so we can take a little more risk. We can do things that are a little bit interesting, a little bit new, things that are dead in the industry. Take vampire novels, for instance. It's said they are completely dead. We ended up doing one a couple years back, and it did all right. But we decided to take the risk because we felt it was different enough. It was still vampires, but we tried it. It was a risk that we took that a big 5 publisher probably wouldn't take. Now, I'm not saying we want your vampire novels. We don't. But that's just to give an example. We are truly looking for the next best thing. So if it's new and it's fresh, independent publisher is a good way to go. Let's talk about self-publishing, aka flying solo. So I mentioned everything is free publishing. Well, with self-publishing, you are solely responsible for all aspects of publishing. You have to go through Amazon. There's Smash Swords. There are a couple of other self-publishing sites, but really Amazon's your big one. They used to be looked down upon. When you said, I published a book, like, who'd you publish with? Well, I self-published. And you kind of got one of these, like, okay. Now, there are enough successful self-published authors that I don't actually think it's looked down upon anymore. It's one of those like, hey, you decided to go that route. Awesome, good for you, good luck. Which I think is fantastic. I think the industry we're slow, but we're becoming more accepting of it. Pros, you can get 70% royalty rates on Amazon as long as you price your book at $9.99 or lower. 70%. You go with a publisher, you're getting anywhere from 5 to 15%. If you're 15%, if you're awesome, up to 20% maybe if you're J.K. Rowling. But royalty-wise, 70% royalties is insane. Ebooks, you'll generally find 25 to 35% of royalties for ebooks for a traditional publisher. That's half of what Amazon will give you. So that is really, 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 really good. You can make a lot of money. Instead of making $1 a book, you're making $2, $3, $4 a book, depending on the price of it, which is awesome. If you price it at $10, 70%, that's $7 per book. That's essentially what it costs. That's more. That's more than what it costs to print a physical copy of your book. That's crazy. You're making more money than it costs me to make a book. It's awesome. You have complete control over it, which is a pro and a con. I think that the best teams are always 2 people or more. Microsoft, Apple, they all started with 2 kinds of people involved, and they made it wonderful. 2 geniuses make a better item than a single genius. But we can talk about how you can do that as a self-publisher. You pay for everything. Paying for editing alone, a 50,000 word novel, about $1,000 to get a good content edit on it from a freelancer. $1,000 up front. You don't even know if it's going to be good. Copy editing is going to be $500 to $600, and proofreading maybe $200 to $300. So you're looking at almost $2,000 just for editing, and you need it. Everyone needs editing. Everyone. Design. I've seen some designs for, hey, free design for, or not free design, a design for $100, and you get a brand new design. $100 for design work is pretty cheap. I probably wouldn't recommend it. You're probably looking at $500 to $1,000. I know some book designers that charge $2,000 to $3,000. I don't think you need to spend that much, but when you guys look at a book and you say, "Oh, that looks pretty," that doesn't mean it's a good cover. Good covers are specifically there to sell your book. So they don't need to match the inside of your story, funny enough. They need to be there to grab the eye and sell your book. So when something is pretty or looks good or you like it, it doesn't mean it's a good cover. It really, really, really doesn't. So you being the judge of that makes it more difficult. You have to write your own copy. So you're writing your own press releases, you're writing the back of the book. The more I deal with the authors, the more I find they are great writers. They're horrible copywriters. Well, my book's awesome because, well, this character does this thing and it's really cool. Like, they don't know how to explain it. They just write it. If you have to write your own copy, the two biggest things that sell books, cover, number one, cover copy, that's the back, number two. The two things that sell books the most are the two things that an author really should never have any hand in, because they're usually pretty terrible at design and copywriting. You can hire somebody to do that. That's generally a lot cheaper, probably $100 to $200, depending on how long, if they need to read the book first. Or if you have a really killer synopsis, it can be cheap because they can just read your synopsis and write the copy off that. You have to pay for your own print runs or do POD. POD, you're going to have a lot higher cost of the book itself. POD is print on demand. So you don't put any money up front, but you're paying $10 to print each book, and you sell it for what, $12 to $13 plus shipping. You're hardly making any money on it. So you have to charge even more, $15 or $18 to make any money on it. Print runs make it a lot cheaper because you can buy 1,000 at a time, but that's a lot of money up front. You know, you're looking at $5,000 to $10,000, $15,000 sometimes. So is this right for your book? Well, if you're a control freak, yeah. If you have the upfront money, it can actually earn you a lot of money back. And I'm going way too long. I have 5 minutes. Sorry, I'll speed up. And it takes a lot of time and energy. Dan Wells is a Utah author. He wrote I Am Not a Serial Killer. Love the book. He also wrote Partials. He published a self-published book after he had been traditionally published. He did it once, and he said he will never, ever do it again. It takes way too much work. That doesn't mean you guys shouldn't. I'm just letting you know that this is coming from a famous published author. He hates it. He would rather be writing. Hybrid publishing really fast, pretty much the same as all the benefits of traditional publishing, but they don't pay for your print runs. You have to pay for your print runs. What this means is you generally get a much higher royalty rate, and it's considered more of an investment. This isn't just small publishers either. I have seen larger publishers, even from the big five, do this with some of their authors. They do this to kind of help that overhead that I was talking about. They have so much money in the game. Well, if the author pays for the print run, that's a lot less money they have in the game. If you're business-minded, if your story's taking a huge risk, but it's still good, that might be a way to go. Hybrid publishing. It's a lot harder to find hybrid publishers because they don't advertise it as much. because they're still looked upon as vanity presses, even though they're not. So just keep that in mind. So really quick. All right, we have two options. I can talk about pitching, synopses, and query letters, or I can take questions. Show of hands, who wants me to keep talking?
Keep talking.
Who wants questions? Nope? Okay. Talking it is. All right, so pitching. How do you pitch your book? Well, first of all, introduce yourself by name and one single line of who you are. This is a verbal pitch, by the way. This is not a query letter. You give a very, very, very brief bio, and then you launch right into the pitch itself. You know, we're talking, hi, my name's TJ. I'm an editorial director at Jollyfish Press. This book is about yada, yada, yada. Don't tell me your life story, please. I've had that happen. I don't care. Tell me about your book. The biggest thing to know when pitching is to know their preferences. I hate when people come up and they're like, so I'm writing this romance and it's about this, and please leave. I don't care. I've never done that. I'm really nice in person sometimes. I can also be kind of rude. Ask Caroline. I'm sorry. But know the preferences. When you pitch to somebody, look them up online. Find out what they like. Don't stalk them. That's creepy. I've had people pull a personal information off my Facebook and say, hey, how did this go for you? And I'm like, I don't know you. Why do you know that? That's creepy. Don't do that. But know their preferences. I like science fiction. I like fantasy. I like contemporary fiction with a sci-fi twist. I like action novels. I like thrillers. So if you have those, feel free to pitch to me. If you don't have those, probably don't pitch to me. Know their name. I've had far too many people pitch to me and they don't know who I am. And that's sad because it's printed in the program most of the time. Or when you send a query letter and they say, dear, to whom it may concern. That frustrates me because on our website, it has all of our names listed and all of our preferences. So it just shows you didn't do research. It shows that you don't care enough about our house or even about your book to put in that effort. And whatever you do, the biggest thing that you need to do in pitching is character, conflict, consequence. Okay? You need to establish your character. However you want to do that. One line. A boy wizard. Okay, I'm talking about Harry Potter. A boy wizard. That's it. I know your character. Move on. Conflict. This is the biggest point of any pitch. We need to know the conflict for the novel. Harry Potter is a boy wizard who finds out about this magical school and has to fight the Dark Lord. That's the conflict. That's what's happening. The consequence is what happens if he fails. So Harry Potter is a boy wizard who discovered he was a wizard when he was 11, went to a magical school, has to fight the Dark Lord, and if he doesn't win, the Dark Lord takes over the world. That's the consequence. I need a reason to care. You know, don't put, oh, well, they have this fight. Why? Why are they fighting? Why do I care? What is at stake? Character, conflict, consequence. The core of your story should be those three. The core of your story is what your story is all about. If you give me all three of those things, and that's not what your story is about, you probably have the three wrong things. That's what you need to do, is establish character, conflict, consequence. Really quickly, I'm out of time. Types of pitches. You have your one-liners, high concept. That's cowboys go into Moria and have to battle the Balrog with 6 shooters. Right? High concept, easily established. Oh, is about. I obviously am aware it's not actually about people who go into Moria. Star Wars meets cowboys versus aliens. I don't know why I'm on this cowboy kick, but right, that's high concept. Short synopsis, you need this. 100 words or less. Cover everything in your book, all plot points, and reveal the ending. 100 words or less. It's hard, but do it. Long synopsis, 1 to 2 pages. Synopses used to be 20 pages long. I hated those days. Never do. It's so boring. 1 to 2 pages, 600 words. All right, I am going to have to just cut off here. Really quickly, if you're pitching, follow their lead, and don't pitch to people who haven't solicited to you. If I haven't asked for you to pitch, go away. All right, that's all I'm going to have. That's all I'm going to have here. Sadly, I didn't get to the end. I apologize. I tend to talk too much, and I'm pretty verbose. But essentially, hopefully, that leaves you with an idea of where to submit, how to submit, what fits for you, and where you can find a home for your manuscript. Thank you so much for coming.